Hello, everyone. My name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time.
You didn't know about Ruthie Jean? I heard her screaming. I heard her right through the walls. I dialed 911. Nobody came. I'm scared. Scared for my child. They ain't never gonna catch him. Who? Candyman.
The Candyman. Candyman with Tony Todd, the first Candyman. Once again, sequels suck. Don't mess with them. Don't watch them. Screw those movies. Screw all the sequels. First, original Candyman, Tony Todd, got a black horror icon. Tony Todd is an icon. He's a legend. He's fantastic. I love me some Tony Todd. And he's great as the Candyman. Tony Todd is fantastic. He's born to play this role. I would say the best thing about Candyman is its tone and its atmosphere. And the music, his score is great. Like at the beginning, it plays like this classical like choir music, and it's really creepy. It definitely sets the tone for the whole movie. Like just the opening credits alone are creepy, you know? Like just that alone is scary.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
And then the images in this movie, like one of my favorite scenes is a scene where you just see this painting of Candyman, and he has his mouth open, and it's just really creepy imagery. And when you hear Tony Todd's voice and you see him for the first time, it's just really like, oh man, like it's creepy. And you meet him in the parking lot, and he's just like this shadowy figure off in the distance, and he's really tall, and he's got this coat on. You see his hook, and it's just really creepy. And it's a really, I would say Candyman is a really creepy movie. It still kind of creeps me to this day. And I would say that when I first saw this movie, I mean, kids are easy to scare, and then when you become an adult, it's not as easy. It becomes a lot more difficult to scare adults.
I can still hear that voice.
You serious?
Real life is much more scary when you're an adult. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, I'm more scared by fiction, I guess. But when I was a kid and I first saw the Candyman, I was probably about 8 years old. I saw it. One of the most horrific scenes in the Candyman that absolutely scared me and terrified me was the scene with the little boy in the bathroom. That scene, to me, just it's set up so perfectly. It's like the main actress, I think her name was Virginia Madsen. Virginia Madsen, her main character is talking to this boy who lives in the projects. I forgot what the place is called, but he lives in the projects, and he's telling Virginia Madsen, she's like trying to learn about the history of this Candyman legend, you know, and figure out what's going on. And so she's interviewing this boy, and the boy tells her the story about this other little boy in the past who was really eager to go to the bathroom, and he goes to the bathroom, and then this whole thing, you know, they're screaming, and then this real tough dude goes to investigate, and then they show this image. You hear the boy screaming, and they show like a quick flash of like you see the boy on the ground, and it's just really like it was burnt into my brain when I was a kid. Like seeing that as a kid was so horrifying. When I watch the scene now, it still kind of scares me, and it's like that nostalgia thing where it's like, oh, I remember this scene, and it scared me so much in the past, and now I'm just like, I'm kind of disappointed with the scene now because when you look at the boy, I'm just gonna say this: when you look at the boy now, it looks like a dummy, like a doll. Like it looks like a doll. Like it doesn't look like a real boy. It looks like a doll, but it's still a good scene, I guess. It's still good. They should have moved the camera a little faster past the boy so you don't see and tell that it's a dummy. But whatever. But the movie's great. You know, it sets up a whole entire mythology with the Candyman, his backstory. It's all great and it makes sense. And the acting in here, especially from the main actress, is really good. There's a couple other actors in here who are really good. There's one actress who is really bad towards the end. It's really terrible. She's like screaming on and stuff, and it kind of, when you see that part, it's kind of cheesy. But I think Candyman is a really good movie. I think it still holds up. The first one, the original, is fantastic. I love it. The tone of it is great. The music is great. The acting from Tony Todd is fantastic. He was born to play the Candyman. What more can I say? Love Candyman. Good Night Mommy. Good Night Mommy is a horror movie. It's more of a psychological horror movie, and I prefer psychological horror movies over some like supernatural stuff. But if the supernatural movie is executed perfectly, and I understand it, and it makes sense, and it doesn't try to be something that it's not, I'm fine with that. So with Goodnight Mommy, it's completely psychological. You got these two boys who live together, and their mom has these bandages on her face. So immediately, this movie kicks off into weird territory. It's a very weird movie. So it's like you watch these two boys, and you see their experience with their mother, who's just acting strange and behaving weird, and the boys are behaving in a weird way, and nothing happens for a little while. The boys are just building this suspicion towards their mom, and they don't believe that the person who's in their house currently is their mother, and you don't get to see her face for a very long time throughout the movie. Her face is just wrapped up in bandages, and so as the movie progresses, it just gets more and more weird, and it starts problems. The whole thing starts to escalate to the point where the boys, they freak out on their mom. They do these really horrible things to her, and the movie goes there. That's one thing I can praise this movie for, is that it goes the distance. It goes there. It doesn't hold anything back. It like goes to those dark, weird places, and it works. And it doesn't feel out of place. It feels like all of it was necessary, and I really enjoyed it. And so when I watched the movie, by the end of it, it's like, okay, everything makes sense, and the ending, when you see it, it's really horrific. Like I said, this movie holds nothing back. You see everything, and that's another thing I like about it. And then by the end of it, it's like I say, it's psychological because it's dealing with a boy, these two boys who have an issue with their mom. They don't believe that that's really their mother, and they're obsessed over that, and they're determined to prove that that's not their mother. When the mom is like, "I am your mother." So then you can say it relates to like childhood trauma and what happened with the boys when they were kids. How did the mom treat them? How is the mom acting towards them? How is she behaving? Her emotions being inflicted on her two boys, and then how they're responding to that, and that ultimately um, leads to how they're behaving towards her in the movie, which is great. And there's just like a psychological aspect with the boys when they constantly misbehave in the movie. They're not treating their mother right. They do some really messed up stuff to her, and it's like I said, it's very engaging. It's a very interesting movie. I absolutely love this movie. When I first saw it, I didn't know what to expect, but then by the end of it, I was just like, that was my reaction to watching Goodnight Mommy. I highly recommend it. It's a very weird movie. It's skillfully directed. The tone of it is great. atmosphere is fantastic. The acting in there is exceptional, and the ending of it is completely satisfactory. And I love Goodnight Mommy. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Check it out.
Oh, 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 I can count on this love. Really my fault.
The one and only John Carpenter's Halloween. Yes, John Carpenter's Halloween is an amazing movie, but I will say that my emotions towards Halloween have always bounced back and forth because when I first saw Halloween, I was a kid. A lot of these movies I saw when I was a kid. Um, so there's that nostalgia thing where it's like I constantly watch it and I'm like, it doesn't scare me as much as it used to, but it's still near and dear to my heart. And I love these movies. I kind of laugh at them now, but I still think they're good, perfectly executed. And so with Halloween, my emotions were going back and forth with it because at first when I first saw it, I was a kid and I fell in love with it. Then as I got older, I watched it more and more, and I kept saying to myself, "This movie is really boring. This movie is slow. This movie is dull. There's nothing happening. He's just following people, and it's dull and it's boring." But then something clicked one day when I watched it because I kept watching and watching. And it's like, why Why do I like this movie? So this movie's dull and boring. Then I'd go back, oh, to this movie's good. And I'd go back, oh, this movie's dull and boring until it finally clicked in my head to where I said, okay, it all makes sense. It's realistic where you got this guy, simple premise, guy breaks out of a mental institution. You got the mental patient's doctor, who's fantastic in this movie, fantastically played by Donald Pleasence, fantastic actor, greatest Dr. Loomis here. And you got Dr. Loomis trying to track down Michael, who's going back to Haddonfield, Illinois, which is his hometown, to kill random people. That's the first Halloween. The sequels, it becomes like, oh, it's family members. But the first one is just random people. We don't know. These people mean nothing to him. He's just a crazy lunatic and he just wants to kill people. That's it. And so him following people, when I think about that, it's really effective because it's like it sets the tone. It builds and builds and builds because you're wondering when is he going to strike. And when he does strike, you don't see it coming, and it fits what the character's doing at the time to where when he first kills someone once he goes back to Haddonfield and he's stalking these girls, because at the beginning it's just like, okay, he's following people around and all that stuff. And this is the reason why I say that Michael Myers is my favorite slasher icon above everybody else. Like Michael Myers is number one. Screw Jason, screw Freddy, screw Chucky, screw Leatherface, screw all of them. Michael Myers is number one. And the reason being is because Michael is strategic. He's a thinking serial killer. He thinks before he kills people. He plots it all out. He'll stalk you for hours until you're alone. And then he'll attack you, unlike Jason, who's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to kick down this door, and all of you are in the same room. I'm going to stab as many of you as I can, and until some of you get away, and I'll just stalk you. You hide in the closet. I kill you in there. And that's fine, because he's brutal. It's brutality, and it's like forced, and he's just like really, he's a brooding man. It's whatever. That's fine. But Michael Myers is intelligent. And that's why I like him so much. He knows what he's doing. He's not doing it for any purpose in the first Halloween. He's just doing it because he's a nutcase. He's just crazy. And it's beautiful. It's fantastic. He's following these girls all day, from the day to the night. Follows them in the car. Then he hides behind a tree, just watching, and he hides behind bushes. And he kills his dog because it gets on his nerves. And then he pops out like Jack in the Box when Annie's in her car. I think it's Annie. I think it was Annie. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And then the musical score is fantastic. It's iconic, obviously, if you've heard it, because a lot of movies have tried to imitate it or just copied and pasted it. The score by John Carpenter. He said, oh, yeah, all I did was just simply type like 2 keys or something. And it's a classic score. it will forever be remembered in history of cinema, especially in the horror genre. So the music is great. Jamie Lee Curtis is great in the movie. Some of the acting may be a little like cringeworthy, but it's fine. It's a good movie. It is a little slow, but it makes sense because he's stalking people. He's waiting for his perfect time to strike. So I love Halloween. It's a great movie. Love it. Number three on my top 10 favorite horror movie list is a movie that I only saw one time, but the first time I saw it, it immediately it blew me away.
I know you don't love me. And that's okay because I don't know if I love you either. I know how tough it's been for you out here. It's a tough city.
Entrance. Entrance is, I don't know, it's fantastic. Entrance, if you have not seen Entrance, I highly recommend it. But I will not recommend it to people who do not like slow building, tedious movies. Like Paranormal Activity or something I just mentioned, like Halloween, where it's kind of boring and slow. But just like Halloween, it's boring and it's slow because there's nothing happening. But then if you're really paying attention to it, you're like, it makes sense. I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I just like movies that are slow building movies, that are slow burners. As long as they have a really good payoff at the end. I'm fine. It could be slow for an entire hour and nothing happens. But then by the end of it, if there's like a huge payoff and then it reflects on the whole rest of the movie as to why it was so slow and there's a big payoff, then I'll clap. And I'll be satisfied with that. And I think Entrance is the perfect example of a movie that does that. It's effective because I remember when I first saw this movie, I was living in a different state. And this is back when the Blockbuster video store was around. I miss my Blockbuster, man. But yeah, it's back when Blockbuster video store was around. They were going out of business at the time. And so I was walking around the racks, shelves, looking for a movie that I wanted to watch and something I hadn't seen before. I just came across Entrance. I saw the cover, and the cover got me interested. I just looked at the cover. I was like, Entrance, woman's face. Looks like her face is kind of like shredded, like paper. All right. So I picked it up and I read the description on the back of the case. And when I read the description, to me, it seemed like it was going to be a movie about a woman suffering an identity crisis. Like she didn't know who she was as a person. She was trying to find herself or create herself. And that's what I got from the movie because it didn't tell me anything. It didn't tell me, it just gave me some brief description of this woman and what she's going through. And I'm like, okay, so I think this is what the movie's about. So I went into this completely blind and seeing trailers for it, nothing. So I take it home, I'm like, all right, boom, it's going to be about a woman going through an identity crisis. It's going to be a drama film. So I watch it, and it's really slow because all we see is this woman's day-to-day activities. We just see her day-to-day activities. She's waking up. I think she has a dog. She feeds her dog, or cat or something, I don't remember. But then she makes coffee. She works in a coffee shop. She's just doing day-to-day stuff. And it goes on and on and on for a very long time. To the point where I was like, what is this about? Like, she's not going through an identity crisis or something. I mean, maybe I don't see anything wrong with this woman's life. But then there's one scene in the movie where something happens. Now I'm going to spoil it for people who haven't seen it because I'm pretty sure a lot of you haven't seen this movie. It goes on and on with her day-to-day routine. And then there's something weird happening. And you look at that and you're like, okay, And it did kind of remind me of Paranormal Activity. It's not like Paranormal Activity. I'm saying it kind of did remind me about that because it's like, in Paranormal Activity, you got the bed shots where it's like, oh, it's the bed, they're sleeping, and it goes on and on and on. This is kind of like that. So I'd say most people probably won't like this because it's very slow. But you're seeing this girl's day-to-day life. You see something weird happen. Then she goes back to her day-to-day life. And something weird happens again, and this kind of escalates. And you're just like, what is this? What's happening? So then by the end of the movie, right, something really big happens, like really, really big, where it just turns the whole movie on its head. Where at the beginning, you're just like, oh, what, and then it goes, and then by the end, it's just like, what? It's just, and something really big happens to where it just flips the movie on its head, and it's really like I did not expect that ending to take place. And so by the end of it, I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned by the end of the movie. So then when I reflected on it, I was like, this is like real life, where you got some random person going through their day-to-day activities, and then something big happens out of nowhere, and I like that. And then the ending it's a sad ending too. It's like, wow, like really? And so after I first saw it, I was kind of upset. I was like, I sat through all of that. I went through all that stuff. I go through that just to get to this, and I think that's why most people will be upset. They'll be like, oh, that wasn't really. I know some people will probably say, oh, I knew it was going in that direction once this happened, But me, I guess I'm slow and I didn't know what was going on until one significant thing happened, or at least until the end. That's when I was like, holy crap, man. I like Entrance. I really like Entrance. After taking time to reflect on it and think about it, it's a really good movie. Like it's a good movie. It's really good. Like, yeah, it's really slow and it's boring, but like I said, it's one of those movies to where if you just sit through it and you willpower it and you just go right through it and you sit there and be patient and you wait, it will have a big payoff, and I think you will be satisfied. Love Entrance. It's a good movie.
Does anybody want to play Parcheesi? Okay, who brought the dog? Nice doggy, cute little pooch. Maybe I got a milk bone.